Welcome back, Principal Matters podcast listeners. I am Dr. Jen Schwanke and here with my co host and friend and podcaster extraordinaire, Will Parker. Hi, Will.
Hi, Jen. Did you know that the Q&A that we're getting ready to do is supported by our friends at Summer Pops Math Workbook? So before we do the Q&A, I just want to say, principals, when students practice math over the summer, your math scores, they go up. And so right now is the time to be planning for your summer math work. So a great way to start is by ordering a free summer workbook sample or samples from my friend Pete at summerpopsworkbooks.com. So don't hesitate if you're already thinking, how can I get my kids through the summer ready for next year to be strong in math? Go to summerpopsworkbooks.com and request your free samples. Jen, what
And
is the Q&A that we're revisiting? Because this is actually a Q&A part two.
well, yeah. And before we do that, I want to tell you why you should stay on after the
Oh,
Q&A.
that's
And
right.
yeah,
Who's our
I
guest
haven't
this week?
told you yet who our guest is. This is my friend, Eric Nichols. You guys, Eric Nichols is such an incredible human being. I met him when I went out to Oregon to lead a 3-day institute of rural principals.
Mhm.
And I loved it so much out there and loved working with Eric so much out there that I basically asked him to invite me back. And he did. So I'm going back to Oregon this spring. But this is Eric. Eric does some great work and lots of little known facts about Eric that you're going to hear in this interview. So stay tuned for that. We're going to do this Q&A though because it's really important. And when we first did this last week, we kind of got vulnerable and real, and I think we're going to do that again. This is about burnout. We had somebody reach out and say, I'm really kind of struggling with burnout. How do you persevere through those hard times? So, Will, I'm going to let you take the first swing at this.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna let you, Jen, because
Oh,
seriously, because when I heard this question the first time, I actually, full disclosure, was reeling through social media and you popped up on a video. And I was like, "There's Jen." And I looked and you were talking to my friend Jimmy Casas on his show, and
hmm
he has a podcast called The Interview Chair, which I'm gonna be a guest on coming up in some weeks ahead. And I was like, "There's Jen." And so I pushed play, and you guys were talking a little bit about what to do when teachers are facing burnout. And I heard you say something I've heard you say before, and I was like, "Oh, I want Jen to bring this to this conversation." You and so I'm putting words in your mouth, Jen, because
please.
you said, "Whenever I see teachers struggling, the first thing I do is I stop and ask, is this a purpose, priority, or a pattern
Mhm.
that I'm dealing with here?" So I just thought that would be a helpful place to start. And by the way, part 1 of this conversation happened in our last flagship show.
Mhm.
So if you wanna go back to last Wednesday, we addressed this, but part
Right.
2, I thought would be fun to start there.
Right. So I wrote an entire book about this,
Mhm.
and it's called The Teacher's Principle. And the whole idea there is how can we support our teachers best? Be the teacher's principal. But I wish I had put a big fat subtitle on that book that said, "Hey, principals, all of this applies to you too."
Mhm.
I really think about how there's so many things that come at us as educators, and our response to them usually is in one of three buckets: our purpose, whether that has been shaken or compromised in some way; our priorities, what is life bringing to us? What are other things that we're contending with outside of the work we're doing as educators? And then those patterns, the habits and routines that drive us, how we plan our lessons, whether we stand in the hall as kids are passing, how we, what we write on the board, what resources we select.
Mm.
Those are really just habits and routines, right? And so if we dig down into those during our dark times when we're thinking, I'm really burned out, I don't know how I'm going to get through this, it helps to me to categorize what's the root of my discontent, so to speak.
Mm.
What is it that's making me feel like this isn't working and I got to make a change?
What I like about that, Jen, is that your purpose is embedded in belief.
Hmm
So it brings us back to, sometimes we like to use that word mission.
hmm
And that priority piece to me is embedded in the important choices you're making. You and I talk all the time about anytime you say yes to something, you're saying no to something
hmm
else. How do you delegate and distribute and identify in advance what's most important? I always say to leaders, you said that's important to you. Now show me on your calendar where you plan to do that.
Right.
But then your patterns become the habits Sometimes the systems, sometimes they're the people and systems pieces together. And you and I talk a lot about all of these things, but I like that because what I hear you saying is take a moment and pause. And if you're reflecting on your own burnout, because that was the question from this
Mhm.
listener, is how do I persevere? How have you navigated difficult stretches in your own career? And so what I hear you saying, Jen, is one of the important things to do is just stop and ask, okay, is for myself, is this a purpose problem, a priority problem, or a pattern problem?
Exactly. And I can't tell you how many times that has led me out of the dark, so to speak,
Mhm.
and helps me know what problem I'm solving.
Well, I mentioned this the last time that we were together, that when I wrote the book, Pause, Breathe, Flourish, Living Your Best Life as an Educator, it was a reflection for me on those areas of my own growth that could help me stay a better human so that I could also be a stronger leader.
Mhm.
And I think I told the last Q&A the story of my wife holding the mirror up to me that I was becoming a shell of the man I used to be. And so I'm shamelessly plugging that book again as a way for leaders to think about how they can reflect on this themselves. I've also had leaders do that as a book study with their teachers,
Mhm.
because every chapter I take an opportunity to ask you to reflect on your own habits and practices and mindsets around different categories. I have a
Mhm.
chapter on your own mind, your mindset, a chapter on the power of your influence. Are you creating, when you step in a room, does it get brighter or does it get darker? Your own time management, because that time management is a huge part of how you can execute the things that you know are most important. Your own friendships, because if we
Mhm.
abandon the people that are going to support us and hold us up in this work and think we can do it alone, we're going to die. Your own spirituality. So, and whatever that means to you, but your recognition that you are a part of something that is so much bigger than you. And so
Yeah.
get outside and look up at the sky every once in a while, or go take a moment and pray, or connect with other people that you love that just remind you you're a part of something so much more beautiful than just what's trapped inside your own mind. Your resources, your most important relationships, your family, your future, your legacy. I'm not going to unpack all of them, Jen, but I, when I hear someone saying to me, I feel like I'm burning out, um, because I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a doctor, I'm not any of those things. I do kind of think like, okay, burnout can mean a lot of things. Um, it can be you could be physically exhausted, you could be mentally exhausted, you could be spiritually exhausted, you could be financially exhausted. There's a lot of different things that the pressures that we feel that push us that way. But Jen, I thought that might be helpful. And I know this is just a Q and A before our wonderful guest this week. So anything you want to say as we wrap up this part of our
No.
show?
No, nothing new. It's just you're not alone. A lot of us have felt that way. Even people who truly love our jobs are often like, this is a lousy time. So I'm just so excited for you all to meet Eric. So stay on for, a couple of, well, 20, 30, 40 minutes with a genuinely phenomenal human being.
Thank you, Jen. And Principal Matters listeners, thank you for doing what matters. And we hope you have a great week. Let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. Why is IXL used in 95 of the top 100 U.S. school districts? Because it works. IXL is research proven to benefit all student populations, including English language learners and special education classrooms. IXL is an all-inclusive online learning and teaching solution for K-12 that accelerates achievement, saves teachers time, and more. This one platform helps you accomplish what normally would require dozens of other tools. For example, as students practice skills, IXL automatically differentiates learning to help them master concepts at their own pace. Teachers get real-time insights into how students are performing so they can provide timely support. What I love about IXL are the personalized SAT and ACT study plans. Students just need to enter the most recent test score, and IXL automatically generates a custom list of skills they should work on to improve their scores. Discover what IXL can do for your school. Visit IXL.com/PM today.
You're listening to Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast.
Welcome back to Principal Matters podcast, everyone. I am Dr. Jen Schwanke, and we are heading into the heart of rural America today to speak with a guest who's truly a champion for students and educators in communities that are often overlooked. And I could not be more psyched for this conversation because we're talking to a new friend of mine. Hi, Dr. Eric Nichols.
Well, how we doing? Good to see you again.
It's good to see you too. For our listeners, I got to spend a few days in Bend, Oregon, where Dr. Nichols, I don't know, like worked his magic for a wonderful 2 or 3 days with rural educators in Oregon. But a little about you, Eric. I think people have started to call you kind of like the rural school leader, and for good reason. Um, I'm going to talk a little bit about you, and then you're going to get to talk. Dr. Nichols is the principal and head boys basketball coach at Crane Union High School, which, by the way, is one of the last public boarding schools in the entire country. I'm going to say that again, a public boarding school. He's a passionate advocate who understands that in a small town, the school really is the hub of the community. And so, beyond leading his school and coaching his basketball team, by the way, to an incredible 4 consecutive state titles, he has co founded Wide Open Spaces, which is a network dedicated to supporting isolated rural educators. And that's where I got to meet you, Eric. So, hi and welcome.
How we doing? Good to see you.
It's great. Like when we spent that time together with the rural principals, I had no idea about the whole basketball coaching thing. I did know a little about your school being a public boarding school. So let's start there. Tell our listeners what that means.
Yeah, so when you hear boarding school, right? Like people think military school or, send the naughty kids there. Uh
Mhm.
very much not this. We've got our share of naughty kids. No, we've got great kids, but no, this is our school district is just under 10,000 square miles. So our school district is bigger than 7 states. Um, it's ginormous. And with that said, we've got kids that their house is well over 2 hours away drive time. Um, there's many gravel roads, many dirt roads, around national wildlife preserves, like all the things. And so with that says distance is a challenge. So we have 7 1 or 2 room schoolhouses within the county. Those feed into our Union High School.
Okay.
So Fields, Oregon, which is on the border of Oregon, Nevada, that feeds into Crane High School. Driving 2 hours each way isn't really doable for folks. And so with the school district, what it is, they created a dormitory years ago. And so those kiddos, they come on Sunday night, and they stay through Thursday at school, and many of them go home Thursday night.
Okay.
Athletics often takes place on the weekend. So if you're a parent, you would often travel with your child, whether that's motel rooms or sometimes they'll stay in the dorm. But hard situation to wrap your mind around, like sending your 14-year-old kiddo a long ways away to stay in a dorm. But we've got great staff here. We have a matron and a patron. The boys
Okay.
live on the bottom floor and the girls live on the top floor. And so we have some great staff that work with our kiddos, and that's the dorm. Pretty interesting situation.
So do they ride a bus or do parents get them there?
In lieu of transportation dollars, which states often reimburse schools for, right?
Right.
We get dorm dollars. So we help reimburse parental transportation or student transportation in some cases rather than a bus.
Right. Okay. Okay. And athletic, well, wait, I'm gonna get there in a moment. There's so much to ask this guy, everybody. Okay, so you didn't start teaching in Crane. You started your teaching career in a large high school with about 2,400 students.
Yeah, right. Bursting at the seams.
Yeah, so tell us about the adjust, like what brought you here?
Mm. So I grew up in what I call Baker. It's now called Baker City, but it's under 10,000 people. So it's like a historical thing. So if you're originally from Baker, you call it Baker. So I grew up in a town of just under 10,000 people, fairly rural. We do have a freeway that runs by. And so, you get all that, but it's still more of a rural community. It's 2 hours from Boise, Idaho.
Okay.
which is, a decently large city.
Right.
So I grew up rural, and I grew up even more rural than that as a youngster, in a town of about 300, where my grandparents lived. So grew up with cows and horses and tractors and all the things. And so then as I went to college and worked my way through the long story of deciding what you want to do in life,
Mhm.
I decided I wanted to go into education. And so when I went down that route, I ended up falling in love with both athletics and teaching. And so I found myself at a bursting at the seams high school in just outside Boise and Meridian. And they were building high schools faster than I'll get out just because of the growing population, because Boise is such a great area. And as that was happening, classes of 52 at one point, right? Like, what is going like we opened up a new high school and like there they were, right? And so, you had just jam-packed classrooms, but awesome, awesome, awesome staff, and we got through that. Um, and then I while I loved it, and I wouldn't trade it for anything because like you got to be on your game with 50 kids in your class, right?
Right.
Um, and often they behave better, by the way, because like there's a community with 50 kids. And so anyway, that said, there were some opportunities that I saw in rural America that were like, we're kind of calling me back there. Oh, and then I met a gal from Burns, Oregon.
Okay.
And so that might be part of the situation as well.
That helps. That helps if you
Yeah.
got a pretty girl who says, let's go rural. So
Yep.
I think this is actually quite profound what you just said, because you just told us that you went for this.
Hmm.
It happened to you. It wasn't that you never left town. You had gone out into a different situation and then you came back rural. And so I know from just talking to you and listening to you that one of your, um, the roots of your why is, the school's role as the community hub. So tell me why those moments are so powerful for the students, the town, the parents, the community. What do you feel it as a rural principal that some of your suburban or urban colleagues might not?
Hmm. You said something prior to your question that really got me, and I'm going to answer that first.
Okay.
I was in a conversation with somebody and I told them where I was a educator at. And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I go, "What do you mean you're sorry?" And like very offensive, right? Like, no, there's nothing to be sorry about. I love where I'm at. Like,
Right.
or I wouldn't be here.
Right.
And like rural isn't something that happens to you. It's something you get to be a part of.
Mhm.
And that's where I said, "I'm sorry you don't understand."
Right.
Right. I'm sorry you don't get to have that opportunity. And so, um, so with that said, Jen, I think that um, it's a calling, it's a feeling. The sense of community is like no other. When I pick up this phone,
Hmm.
98% of the time it's help. It is like, what can we do for this child? Not a right? Like like, yes, right? There's always those situations, but no, it's like, how can we help? Hey,
Right.
what's, Friday night this, Friday night that? How can we help at the booster club? How can we help with the football game? How do I get on the chain gang? Like, who asked for that? Right?
Right.
Can I help with this? Can I help with that? Hey, we have a visitor who's great in leather working. It would
Yeah.
be awesome if we could get that into the middle school class. And all the things um, that when you get to walk down. So this doesn't happen, but I'm 30 minutes away from a tube of toothpaste, my boss often says. And so like our store is 30 minutes away, in a nearby town. But when we walk down aisle 7 at that grocery store, like it's not conflict. I don't like pretend I didn't see him and walk down aisle 8. Um, yeah, you have to have a parent teacher conference or you get to have a parent teacher conference, but like that's okay, right?
Right.
We're all in this together, and because we're all in this together, we do have those hard conversations. Because when I go to the movies and again in the nearby town, like I get it. I'm probably watching a movie with some of my kids, not
Right.
my kids, but
Right.
our kids, right? And we're all policing each other. It's like neighborhood watch.
Yeah.
And so you have those difficult conversations because you're going to see each other again and
Right.
again and again. It's very family.
Right. Well, and I have heard you also say, I mean, you wear a lot of hats. You're principal, you're coach. I think you've driven a bus,
100%.
Walk us through a typical day in the life.
Mm,
You manage that constant role switching.
mm.
It's so common for rural school leaders.
Yeah. Jen, I think it's also important to note, not to like add more hats, but like because our school is so small, like we often struggle with dollars. And
Right.
so one thing we also do is we've got a collaborative relationship with a virtual charter school
Okay.
to help us out with money, and also because we believe in school choice, and that also gives us more options for our kids, right? So we have virtual relationships for AP, college classes, makeup classes, all the things. And so I also wear some hats there, but again, very collaboratively with our district. So when I come in the office, unfortunately, the first thing I do is often open up my email, right? Right, like the task, right, with all the stuff, and so after sorting through all the things, um, you just begin, your day with, okay, um, and I this has been a cognizant effort the last 2 years, right? Like how can I support, not reactive, but proactive, right? Like how can I support our building? How can I support our kids? How can I support our teachers versus the reactive? You know as well as I do, reactive is often the job because of a complaint or a this or a that or something that happened on the bus and all those things. But again, I've got a folder that is my day. It also lives digitally, and like that's the stuff we're working on, right? And so that goes with me almost everywhere, having left it almost everywhere. There's nothing confidential in there. But anyway, that said, like that keeps my focus on like the tasks, the email tasks, all the things. But I'm there to support,
Right.
right?
So,
I'm there to be the backup. I'm there to be the whatever that I'm there to support.
right. How many teachers do you have, Eric?
Ooh, we've got 8 up here at the high school, and I believe this is going to be, I think we're at 14 down at the elementary right now.
And how you mentioned sports, and I want to get to your legendary run. You said that happens on the weekends, and so do
Yeah.
the athletes stay over the weekend?
Sometimes do, sometimes don't, depending on what time we leave and all the things, because the matron and the patron would have to come back, all the things. But if we leave before noon for our game, yep, they're staying and they will stay in the dorms. If we leave afternoon, they're expected to go home and then come back. But the community often will house some of those kids, not by us asking, but just because we don't want that kid to drive 2 hours in the snow,
That's
right?
right.
So that's what the community does.
Yeah. And so when do you practice after school?
Yeah. Yep.
How many sports do you have in your high school?
Football, volleyball,
Okay.
boys basketball, girls basketball, wrestling, boys and girls wrestling,
Okay.
and track and field.
Nice.
We do
Okay.
have some co-ops with, again, that 30-minute away place, Burns. Great, great, great people there. And so we do baseball and softball there as well.
Okay. 4 state championships. How do you run a school, drive a bus, run a convention, run a conference, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, and win the state title? I mean,
Mm,
this is, do you love coaching basketball? Is it a good balance or is it too much? And what does your poor wife say?
mm.
All
My
the-
poor wife, when we first got married, like part of our very frank conversations was like, hey, I'm a coach.
Right.
Right. And like that's in my blood. That's what I love. And what I love is the relationship piece, and being able to work closely with kids, go to battle with kids, have a common bond, have a common theme, like all the things.
Yep.
And so moving forward with that has been just awesome. Um, and my oldest son, I've got 4 kiddos, and so my oldest son was a part of that journey for a long time. He's a sophomore in college now, so don't have.
You know, you had 4 kids. You guys, this is, I spent 3 days standing next to this man. And, you know, you never want to say, do you have children?
Right, 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 right.
Kids too?
Yeah, yeah.
With you?
They do go to Crane, which is pretty special. So my wife teaches here as well.
Okay. See,
Um,
he's like, it's like breadcrumbs with this guy. And you chase it. You're like, where are we now? Okay. So you're,
well,
got you.
well, Jen, so she teaches here, and so I've got a daughter in the high school now. She's a junior. She plays volleyball and basketball and track, and then I've got an eighth grader at the elementary middle.
Yep.
And then I've got a what is he now? He's a my goodness, he's a fifth grader. Yeah, and so with that athletic journey, it's been just a blast, and like it was very very unexpected in year one, which was the year right after COVID. Very unexpected for the community, not for
Right.
me.
Right. You knew it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
year two was a little bit of pressure.
Right.
Um, Year three, quite a bit of pressure, and then year four was awfully, awfully hard. But what a great, great group of individuals in the community just standing behind us and often beside us or even in front of us leading the way. Just a great, great thing that really brought our team together.
Here's what I love for you, as a former coach and someone who's married to a longtime coach. It's there's something beautiful about it. It's hard, it's hours, it's commitment, but there's, like you said, it's that connection to kids that really can't be replicated anywhere else. And I think it's amazing you get to be the incredible leader you are and also still coach. And
Mhm.
I'm going to transition now to how you and I connected. I got to come and work with your rural principals in this wide open spaces network. So that we're going to talk about that conference
Yeah.
experience and what it was like for me to stand in that room. But tell me how this network came to be. You know, what's your
Mm.
story and how do you bring an event like that to life like you did, especially educators so geographically isolated?
Yeah. So I was running a basketball camp in Burns, Oregon. And that summer I was outside, and my kiddos were there, and all the hundreds of little kiddos around third graders, fourth graders, like doing what they do, dribble derby and shoot
Right.
hoops and dribbling off to all the things. And this lady came up to me, very nicely dressed, and said, "Hey, I need you to talk to me in the district office. I'm the new superintendent." Whoa. And I was like, "Well, I've got
Oh
camp.
boy.
Well, you're going to come after camp." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So at the end of the day, and sweaty and gross and shorts and all the things, I got to go meet the new superintendent. And I went up there and she says, "You're going to apply for the director of special services." And I said, "Oh, I am." And so she says, "Well, I heard you're working on your administrative degree and whatnot." And so with that said, I showed up the next day, dressed a little nicer, and we had that interview. And about 2 weeks later, she called and said, "Hey, you didn't get the job, but you did get the middle school principal job," which I didn't know I was applying for. So I said,
Right.
"Well," I said, and so went down that road and discussion, discussion, discussion. Anyway, that said, I took the job, and that was 4 days before school started.
Oh,
So, whoop.
right.
So I'm sitting in that chair, not quite sure what to do in my first administrative job. And the first day of school, my neighborhood guy who made the walk, who I learned over those 4 days, because he came up every single day, very early in the morning, brought with him a gun clip that he had found on the playground.
Welcome to school administration.
Yes, very much so. So if you can kind of think of the Winnie the Pooh tree, and that's where he kind of looked in that little hole and grabbed it. And so I went out there with him that morning and found a Sirius traveling radio, and that where he also found the gun clip. So um, he went on his way that morning, and I quickly learned that what they teach you in administrator school sometimes isn't enough. And so, like, I got out my emergency plan and did all the things, and I attempted to call my boss. I didn't get an answer because it was fairly early in the morning. Um, and so, oh no, I see what to do here, but I just want that reassurance. So I went through my list, and I didn't really want to call my boss because I didn't want to seem inept. I didn't want to feel stupid.
Right.
but I did. But again, no answer. So I didn't know what to do. I called my ex high school principal, my old high school principal when I was a kid, and he answered, Mr. Jerry Peacock, who was in the room with you at Wide Open Spaces. And he walked me through it, reassured me, and we went down the route of different soft lockdown, all the things. By the way, it ended up working out tremendously. The gun was actually found the evening before, all the things, and so it worked out tremendously. But when asked afterwards by someone at the Department of Education, when we had some leftover funds, what would you like to do with these funds? I immediately went back to that situation and said, I'm the only middle school principal for 10,000 square miles. I want to talk to somebody in my shoes who I'm not scared that it's going to be a mark on my evaluation.
Right.
And so that's where it was built with a gentleman named Mark Redmond and a gentleman at ODE, Oregon Department of Ed, named Brian Putnam, who should be in the Oregon Department Mount Rushmore. And we built Wide Open Spaces, which was a collaborative group, a network where we can talk real.
Right.
So
Right.
that's where Wide Open Spaces was born because somebody stole a gun clip and a Sirius radio and was looking for honey with Winnie the Pooh.
Right, right. By the way, everyone, Eric is a great storyteller, if you hadn't picked that up. Um, and that's what I found in that room. And you opened the conference with that. You said, we're going to be real, we're going to be honest. But also, you did have people in the room from the Oregon Department of Education. You had people who had so many different roles. One gentleman is the PE teacher, science teacher, principal, and superintendent of his district, and he has
Yep.
29 students.
Yep.
And at first I thought if there's any way that these people can come together and connect and collaborate, Eric Nichols is going to be the guy to do it. And it worked. We had fun, we laughed, we shared information. And so I think I just want to publicly, very publicly, there's thousands of people listening to this. I want to say how critical it is that we don't work alone, Eric. And you knew that. And you said, I want to get people together. And I think you were by golly going to make that happen. And so, kudos to you for giving those people a soft place to fall. Like it was such a powerful couple days.
Well, thank you. No, you definitely added to it and you were a perfect fit. It's, like I told the room, I said, I don't know what it's called, X, Twitter. I Twitter stalk folks. I call folks just to make sure like they're the fit for the room.
Right.
Because the room is a fragile place, right? Like not to steal your book title, but like trust is everything,
Yes.
right? Trust is everything. And so they trust that anybody that can be in the room has the rights to be in the room, right? And so you were a great fit for that. So thank you.
We had so much fun. And by the way, I believe in my core that you need to write a book about the rural principalship. And I think you may have had that idea too. So
Mhm.
if you write this book, what would inspire you to take on the project? And what's the central message
Mhm.
you want people to take away about rural schools and rural leadership?
Mhm. So finishing up my dissertation, which was about networking in rural schools, I got to have a lot of great conversations with rural leaders in Oregon and places that you can't find on a map because they're unincorporated, right? 29 kids, 2 kids in a school district down a gravel road. We're the only folks in the school crossing are sheep and cows, right?
Right.
Like, um, so with that said, Casey Hallgarth, who is the superintendent of the school district where I went to school in Baker, and I are good friends. And so we've actually started on this journey around the story of small schools, about mowing the lawn, about driving the bus, about the crazy things that happen in rural schools that happen elsewhere as well, just on a different scale because of our size. There are great things here. There's very much unseen strength in rural schools. And so the overarching message though for what the crazy stories and the fun and the tears and all the things that happen in this office, um, you just shouldn't do it alone. You
Right.
just should not be in a silo because you're just not going to last. Whether the relationship is on the phone, whether it's via email, whether we now have this Zoom thing, whether you need to drive 2 hours to go be in the same room as folks that can talk the same language, you just need to do that and you need to build time. There isn't time, like make the time, right? Like there's nothing in my estimation that's more important than having that relationship. Like whether you're talking to your stapler or whatever it is, like talk to somebody, because a bunch of these decisions shouldn't be made in silos, especially
Right.
when we're dealing with this stuff. But the stress is going to be real, and the good times and the bad. Like get that network. Like call me, right?
That's
Call me
right.
for real. Like I'm happy to do that. I talk to folks from all over the place, and it makes me a better school leader.
Right, right. Um, Eric, there was a great article that I found that kind of highlighted you as a rural teacher, and I'm going to and leader, and I will put that link in the show notes. In that article, you mentioned your fifth grade teacher, Mr. Payne, as a key inspiration. And so,
Mhm.
how do you see that influence and the supportive environment of your own school reflected in the way you lead Crane Union and other rural leaders? Like, how does that make that connection for us?
Mm. Like I got chills right now thinking about Mr. Payne. So, um, I enjoyed school as a youth. I mean, it was fine. Like somewhere around the third, fourth grade, kids start not enjoying school sometimes, right? We zap it out of them somehow. Um, that probably started for me about that time, right? At fourth, fifth grade. But like he brought it back. And I specifically remember like a silly little thing, like talking about the 1988, just age myself, election, George Bush and Michael Dukakis. And I can remember like Bob Dole and Richard Gephardt, like Pat Robertson, like these names that like shouldn't. I'm a political science guy, sorry. But
Right.
like they actually stuck in my head because of what we did in the classroom and how excited to learn about the Electoral College and like caucuses and primaries and like stuff that fifth graders like whoopity do, right? Why aren't we learning about dinosaurs and rock? But like this was my jam all of a sudden. And so like every night I would go home and read the daily paper from Baker, Oregon, right? And look for articles about the election. What fifth grader does that, right? And so my friend and I like really got into it. We clipped articles and brought them in and pasted them with our glue stick, like on this little deal, and got us so excited. And like he did some other things, like he was a juggler, and so we did juggling in PE, all the things like I couldn't juggle. I just couldn't do it. And so, and that was okay because he made you realize that that was okay. And so, um, he would like his voice would change when he was disappointed, like all the things that you remember, like as a grandparent or a key individual in your life. And that's what he brought to the classroom and our school community. And I wasn't going to be a teacher like that. No, no. But it stayed with me. And that's part of the reason that I brought it back, to have it in my heart about education and doing that. And that's part of the reason that I do what I do today. And that's part of the reason, like, when my eyebrows come together at you, right? And like I'm disappointed in you, but I still love you.
Right, right.
Like we say that, like our basketball team says that, like almost grown men telling each other they love each other. Like some people are like, not cool, but no, it's cool, right? Like that's what we do, right? I text and call kids that have played in our program, and it's like, hey, I expect baby announcements, I expect wedding announcements, like not yet, right? But
Right.
I expect that stuff. I expect the good and the bad, and like I'm gonna check on you and like how your college grades are, or not college grades are, or how it's going at work,
Right,
right? Like all the things. That's what we do here, and probably a
right,
quarter of the time, like I love you.
right. Well, I think the metaphor there of Mr. Payne as a juggler and now you very much a juggler. You say you could, you're you really are. You mentioned how, I'm going to text and see how you're doing at work. You've had great success, Eric, at securing grants for career and technical education programs. There was mentioned in that article about a new land lab and a welding shop.
Mhm.
So, you're not only making sure that kids know how to read, apply to college, go and be successful at college, but you're also clearly able to identify what programs will be the most impactful to your students and community
Mhm.
and connect them to the future of that community. So talk to me about that career and that CTE work.
Well, crazy. Oregon, as different as it is, right? Like the west side of Oregon, very Portland, Eugene, the east side of Oregon, kind of bend in the middle there, like very, very conservative, very, very rural. A lot of Oregon is rural. That's not what makes the press all the time, but just different political climates as well, right? And so while CTE is a statewide deal that Oregon has done, it really has caught fire here on the east side of the state. And one of the things that the Oregon Department of Ed has really tried to get to do is around community conversations, and some of those were forced, but like holy moly, we're already having them. And so like while we're having a parent teacher conference, we're also going to talk about, hey, what's best for our school. At board meetings, right? Like we talk about what's best for our school. At football games, we talk about what's best for our school and our kids. And so like Friday nights, like it's the only place to be is the ball game. Like let's also talk about student learning. Like you can mix football and student learning. It's a tough weave, but you can do it. And so CTE has been an important component around that, right? Like we've got a bunch of kids that aren't college bound, and that's okay, right? But we're trying to put them on a path to success. There's a great, great program. I'm not getting any money for this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Like Use Science.
Mhm.
Use Science is awesome,
Yes.
and it allows you and your parents slash guardians to have some awesome conversations about what you're good at and then what you like, what you don't like. And but it's just conversation that you should be having as a parent, as schools, whatever, about did you ever think about this job that you never knew existed?
Right.
So with that, um, our community use science behind it with the data. Our conversations have really lent it to hands-on learning, and hands-on might be around the medical field. We have some medical CTE items here that leads to internships. We have the welding, we have the construction. We have a pumpkin patch out here, by the way, where Friday and Saturday you can come go through the pumpkin patch. But with that pumpkin patch, we have learning because we have a linear watering system, and we're teaching kids how to water effectively, right? While saving water and all the latest and greatest technology. We have a drone program that can tell you how much iron's in the soil and if it needs more, like all the things. And so like you don't have to fly drones, you don't have to irrigate, you don't have to grow pumpkins, but we're teaching kids some of the options and we're having conversations about what's out there, what we can help offer here. But
Right.
where do we go next?
Well, here's why I think that's so critical. Listeners may remember I grew up very rural too, and the risk of there's so many wonderful things about growing up rural. The risk is if kids think they have to do what their mom and dad did.
Yeah.
Um, especially kids who aren't going to college. And so they're like, well, I'll just do what my dad did, or I'll do what my mom did. But there are so many different components of a life you can build, even if you never move out of your rural community. And so that exposure, I think is really critical. And so let me make I have two more critical things to say to our listeners while I have you, Erica. One is a question.
Yeah.
What do you think let's say there's a new rural administrator.
Mhm.
They're a little lost. What's the most important thing that a rural leader can do to ensure their staff and students feel supported and prepared for the work?
That's the greatest question ever. And it's probably the toughest to answer, and I'm probably going to steal a little bit, but Um, I think I was the best administrator when I didn't know what I was doing.
Wow.
Those first 2 weeks on the job, before the paperwork came in, before the evaluation, all the things, that's when I was at my best because I was in classrooms giving kids high fives, right? Like helping them with their math and then helping teachers do what they do, right? Like that's when I was at my best. But just behind that is trust. And being in those classrooms helped that, but I'm going to turn that just a touch to community trust. Um, I got a phone call about 6 weeks into my first season from a gentleman in our community who, again, we're unincorporated. We don't have a mayor and all the things, but like he just called. I don't know how he got my number, all the things. It is on basketball brochures, so maybe that. But like he was just like, hey, I love what you're doing. Love what you're doing with the school. Number one, love what you're doing with the basketball team, the respect, blah, 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 when all this stuff. And so I went and talked to my assistant coach and he goes, well, you got him. You got him. You got him. Right. And so it was very much that like, do what you say you're gonna do.
Right.
Right. Do what you say you're gonna do and walk down aisle 7. And as much as you don't want to sometimes,
Right. Just say,
yeah, yeah, just say hello and do what you need to do.
Eric, when you opened Wide Open Spaces on the screen from your computer, your slideshow,
Mm,
was a quote that got me right in my gut. And it's a quote from Stephen Etchison, and I'm going to read it. And then you're going to tell me why this quote spoke to you.
mm,
I think you've used it.
mm,
Now, here's the quote. People change for two main reasons. Either their minds have been opened or their hearts have been broken. Tell me why that quote leads your conference.
mm. Ooh, you're giving me all sorts of shit. Like that's the second time, right? So I had a hard time, right, in a previous position, right? And I did. I had a hard time. It was some back and forth. There was some conflict, right? Like it was tough. It was so tough. I came out on the other end of it a better person. I'm super excited. I'm not being secretive at all. Like I just want to go into the great details of it, but it's like I'm happy to talk to anybody about it. But it's one of those items that's like that was so hard. And my gut tightens up thinking about it, and I might have a little sweat, all the things, but you learn so much, right? And you think like what you're doing is like, oh, you're breaking me, like all the things, but oftentimes we come out so much better. Like that Garth Brooks song, I think, like unanswered prayers, like all the things, like like your heart gets broken and you learn. You
You do.
learn.
It's so true.
And like your mind gets opened and you learn.
Right. And that really does speak to the experience of education and why it is so profoundly critical that our young people are educated. And the hard times too, they're not, I mean, I same as you, I've had some dark times in my profession, my
Right?
personal, but I look back on them with time, I can
Yeah.
find gratitude for the
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah.
So Eric, this has been such an insightful conversation. Hearing about your day-to-day life, juggling everything from principal duties to coaching to the CTE work that, aisle 7 of the grocery store, it paints such a vivid picture of the dedication that's required of rural leadership. And so I want to thank you so much for sharing your journey and the story behind Wide Open Spaces and your powerful perspective on why.
It's been a pleasure to hang out with you, not only today but previously as well. And so, no, thank you for being a part of that network, and thank you for sharing your email and your phone and all the things with that group. And anybody listening right here, right now, like I'm happy to do that as well. That's why we're in this together. So let's help each other out.
Eric, where can they get a hold of you?
So I'm on all the things. So Eric Nichols was taken for any handle, right? I don't know who that guy is, but like I am Eric Nichols. So I am Eric Nichols. Like that's my handle for almost everything. So that's where you can get a hold of me. Or hey, 541-589-2897. Okay. Name on.
All of
Look
you.
forward to talking to you.
So, to all of our listeners, I hope this conversation gives you a deeper appreciation for the leaders, teachers, and students in our nation's rural schools. They're doing incredible work. And as we've seen here from Eric, they're really the heartbeat of their communities. And so I hate to wrap up today, but thank you for joining us on Principal Matters. And thank you all for doing what matters.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, would you take a moment and like, share, subscribe, or leave us a review. In fact, if you share it out with a friend, even more people can become a part of these conversations. Sign up for our newsletter at williamdparker.com for even more free resources. And don't forget to check out our website to learn more about our books, professional development offerings, Grow Academies, masterminds, executive coaching, and keynote presentations. Wow, let's keep learning together. And thank you for doing what matters.
Principal Matters.